Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ampt Live. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Daly. I'm one of the founders over here at Ampt. And today I was hoping that we could talk about, as soon as I can find my mouse, there we go, that we could talk about building applications using Ampt, but also entirely from our I can't think of it, the web browser, right? So why do we need to have a local installation of VS Code or a bunch of local tools or things like that? Perhaps that's unnecessary. So let's see if we can go ahead and build an entire application, automate it through GitHub, CI/CD deployments, the whole deal. Let's see if we can do that without using a local terminal at all. Okay, so let me just do this. So I'm going to open, if I can find it here. So this is Visual Studio Code. I always use this, and I'm going to close this. Closed. So we're not going to use that. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use GitPod.io. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with this. Well, there should be a bunch of people familiar with this because it's pretty cool. Apparently, because I'm logged in, I can't show you the homepage. So let me log out quickly. Oh, I guess maybe just GitPod.io is the main thing, huh? So let's go to GitPod like this, and we can take a quick look at it. All right, GitPod. Okay, anyways, so again, what this does is essentially gives you these development environments that you can go ahead and run. Apparently, you can also self-host in your cloud account, but we don't care about that right now. We actually care about the fact that we're going to run this in their system and do it through their system. So it is free to use for up to 50 hours per month. Lots of capabilities that you have with this. So again, we'll just jump right into it. But so let's see. So I'm going to go to the dashboard, which I'm not logged in. So I will just log in through my GitHub account. And this is cool because this will automatically connect us with our GitHub account so that we have access to some of the repositories and things like that. There's a bunch of stuff you can dig into here. If you want to go into user settings, look at Git provider and so forth, you can see which permissions you have and what you've given to an individual account or an individual GitHub repo. There are some things in here where if you want to access your private repositories, you have to give them private repository access, which I don't like particularly. I wish you could just grant it on a single one. Maybe there's a way to do that. I don't know. We're going to use a public repository anyways, just so that we don't give it too much access there. Okay, so we've got GitHub or GitPod ready to go here. So this should be all set up for us. Again, I just signed in again with my user or with my GitHub account. Pretty straightforward. Looks like you can do new organizations and all kinds of stuff. So anyways, we're just gonna keep it as it is. I don't know if we can get back to workspaces. Okay, so that's it, the first part of it. The next part of it is we want to make sure that we are logged in via Ampt, because Ampt is going to give us the actual AWS accounts that the deployments or that anything we build with GitPod is going to be deployed to, and that's going to happen automatically through the Ampt system. So we can go here and sign up or sign into Ampt. Again, if you just click this, this is going to bring me into my Ampt account, which I've already set up. This is just a demo account for my Jeremy Daly account here. I got a whole bunch of apps that are listed here. So a couple different things that we can do is if we just want to start fresh and just create sort of a fresh project, we could do that in GitPod. We can come over here into workspaces. We can configure our own repository or try a repository demo and do that sort of stuff. We could go through that whole process. It's not too difficult to set up, but what we would rather do instead is we're actually going to just use an Ampt template that already exists. So just quickly before I do that, I just want to check on something, and if I see this correctly. Oops, what did I do? I'm playing back something I don't want to be playing. Okay, we're good there. All right. Anyways, so let me just turn down my thing here so we don't get some feedback. Okay, so where can we find Ampt templates? So there's a couple different places we can do this. So the first thing is if we go to GitHub and we go to /ampt-templates, we have a repository here that has a whole bunch of Ampt templates that we can look at. There's, I don't know how many repositories, 24 different repositories, have a bunch of different ones. So everything from the TypeScript starter to Nest.js to Nux to Angular, SvelteKit, they're all here, right? So, and a couple other ones like if you want to integrate with Resend and some of these other things. So those all exist. You can use any one of these that you want to. There is a way that you can just grab the repo URL and then go create a new workspace there. So this is one way you can do it. And for example, if we wanted to look at, say, the Hono one, let me just filter this down to Hono. We go into Hono. There's going to be a link in each one of these templates that say deploy to Ampt. Should say deploy with Ampt. But if I click on this, this is just going to take me into that same dashboard, into the start section here, and it shows me these templates, how to actually use this template. You can actually click over to templates here, and then you'll see you've got full stack, back end, and front end. So the back end here, again, Hono, it's the same exact thing, and giving you the information down here for that. So if we were using our local IDE like VS Code, I've done this quite a bit where, again, I've use this amp -- template, or just use amp to create it, and then it will bring up and say which template do you want to use. So hopefully the workflow is not too complicated, but what I want to do is actually open this in GitPod. So I'm going to go ahead and click open in GitPod, and this is going to take me over to GitPod with this new and the repository that we're using. Now, what's cool about this though is, again, I'm using a public template. If you already have a repo set up and you want to access it, you'll see here that when I click this drop-down box, that I actually see a whole list, a big long list of templates that I have that are public on my Jeremy Daly account. So you can see those here. So that just gives you a way that you can just grab it right from there. You don't have to go through some, a process of jumping through some hoops. Okay, I'm going to use the VS Code 1.93.1 browser editor. That seems fine. And the RAM and all that seems fine as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. This will go ahead and set up this environment for me now that is the GitPod environment. So this is a container that GitPod is running that is encapsulating all this stuff for me. You'll see all of that information was imported. These are just the files that were in that Hono directory there. And then you'll see over on the right-hand side in this terminal, so this is the online terminal that's running in the web browser. This will go ahead and say that it's looking for a login code. So a couple things, when it first spins up like this, again, this is running the Ampt CLI, which is pre-installed with any of these templates. Again, you can do this manually in here. This just makes it a little bit easier. But essentially, you do need to authorize GitHub or GitPod, in order to be able to use and connect into your Ampt account. So we do have this URL that shows up right here. You can click this if you want to, and this would open a new browser window, or it should if I click this. So this will go ahead and give me the device confirmation. I can do it that way if I want to. I'm going to hit cancel there just to show you something quickly. This will obviously show that there's a cancel here. One of the things that we just sort of default to do here is you can run start, which will just run Ampt. There's also a script, this GitPod Ampt script. So what should work, or what should happen here, is I think if you run Ampt here, yeah, it's not going to find it because it needs to run the GitPod one, but you can run npm start like this, and that'll go ahead and run Ampt and spin that up for you, and that'll pop open this window as well. So you do have to confirm this. Once this is confirmed, your device is authorized, and so now we can go ahead and we're logged into Ampt, and we're logged in as my Jeremy account, which is what I was logged into the dashboard as. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use this demo org in order to do that. I'm going to click on that, and then we're going to name this. So we're going to call this GitPod app. How about that? We'll hit enter. This will go ahead, and you see that this actually just updated my package.json to give me some context to it, so that it knows the next time I use this, it will work. Okay, so that is now syncing all of this code to a new AWS account that this has assigned to me and is configuring for me. So I now have this URL over here, which is the URL of my app. So a couple quick things just to show on here. We have our convention that anything you put in the static folder will automatically be available as a static asset, which is super helpful. So in this case, there's an index.html file here. And then within your package.json file, anything you specify here, or what you specify as the main, which is the entry point of your application, this will go ahead and route everything to that main file. That'll be the sort of the source of truth, the default entry point for your application. So here we have an index.ts file. This is just Hono. This is a straight Hono app. There's nothing magical or special about this to run this on Ampt. It's just straight Hono. The only thing that you'll notice here is you do need to call the app.fire, because the way that we work is that we are using the web standards or the fetch API in order to actually process this. So when you do app.fire, what that does is it creates an add event listener for fetch behind the scenes that just does the routing for you. But again, that's pretty standard if you were doing it, I think, on Cloudflare and some of these other ones as well. Okay, so just quickly to review this, there is a new app. It's app.get/hello. Just returns some text that says hello, and then there's this greet name thing where it's just a parameter, and then there's a post as well that is using data, but we'll get to that later. All right, so I've got this URL. So if I open this URL here, and again, I can configure trusted domains. That's if I want to do that, I can just do that. I'll go ahead and trust all of the amp.app subdomains, just so it's a little bit easier. If I know it's opening that, then I know it's a secure domain that I can use. And now this has opened that default file for me, which is that index.html. And if I were to go to that /hello route like this, then we go ahead and we see that we get this hello here. Okay, so this is fine. We could, if we wanted to, maybe do something like this, and we'll split the screen. And of course, I'm working on a much smaller screen, so maybe not as nice as if I was working on a very large screen and didn't have to share it all with you. So we could do something like this, and I'll show you that. Looks like that's as small as I can get. So this gets a little small. Again, we can always, this should work where we can just hide. Oops, is it Shift-E or B? Maybe it's B. There we go. So we can close those down, and we can configure this as well if we wanted to hide this. I think all these settings are here somewhere. So view. So what do we want to do? Explore, source control extension. So if I, that loads that. That's not what I want. I want to close that down. And sorry, as I figure out some of this stuff here, view, output, debug, appearance maybe? There we go. Panel, status bar. Is it panel? That didn't seem right. Appearance. So panel is, oh, that's down there. That's J. We need the panel. That's definitely important. Let's see, appearance, status bar, menu bar, status bar? No, see, we want the status bar too. Okay, I don't know how to hide that little thing. Maybe we can't hide it on here because of that, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll leave this over here. That way we can see it. So anyway, so we could do this, all right? And then one of the things that the way that this works is, again, if I look at this, and I don't know, can I zoom into this, or will this be? I guess that zooms the whole thing. All right. Well, not as easy as using a local IDE, but still works. So the way that Ampt works, again, is we are connected to this URL here, which is a remote sandbox for us. So this is actually an account running in AWS, dedicated to us. If I make some changes here, so if I say hello from Ampt, like this, I don't even have to save this. This will just automatically save. That's a feature of GitPod's, so it just saves your work as you're typing. Whenever it does that, or you force a save, either one, it's going to go ahead and sync that code, which is why we saw this last synced here. And then if I go over to this live sandbox and refresh this, we're going to see that this now says hello from Ampt. And this, I could zoom in a little bit to see that. So anytime we make changes over here, say hello from Ampt 1, 2, 3, I don't even have to touch anything. It'll just save and sync that for me. And then if I refresh this over there, we'll see that update. So that's the workflow for Ampt. So again, whether you're using your local IDE or you're using, GitPod or something like that, you can see that the workflow is pretty simple to kind of make some of those changes. That's the idea, is to give you that fast feedback loop. And it's running an actual production parity AWS account that has all the same features as the actual production account that we'll deploy this to in just a minute. Okay, so that's the basic idea there. So we could do it this way. That's one way we can do it. The other thing that we could do is, if we wanted to get a little bit fancy, is we go ahead and open this up. And then I think it's here, we'll do simple browser. We'll paste in that URL here. That'll load in our simple browser, and then we can split screen it this way. So if we did want to do this, and again, I probably... Yeah, see, we're not going to be able to do some of the zooming stuff, but that's fine. We don't always need to zoom. But now we can go ahead and just go ahead and say, we'll say hello from Ampt. And I will save this, or I don't even need to because it will automatically save, and then we'll see the update over there. Okay, so nothing super exciting. I mean, it's exciting to me, but or hopefully it's exciting. It's just there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes here. It's just become very commonplace to build these things. But there's a lot happening here, right? So all of the syncing is done, a whole bunch of really cool stuff, static asset routing, it's all built in. So what we want to do is, let's just build a quick little app so that it does something interesting. And then we're going to go ahead and deploy this to production. We'll set up CI/CD. We'll do it all through the system here, all through our web browser. So there'll be nothing fancy nothing that we have to set up locally or try to emulate or whatever. Okay, so I've got my app running here now. One of the other things we can do is, if we do type in open over here in the URL, it will open us to this particular app that we have running. Here is my sandbox. Here's the sandbox app that I'm running right now, which is my development environment. And I can go ahead and see if I have any scheduled events, things like that, if I have any data that's running, that sort of stuff. So that's all there. Okay, so what I want to do is, let's just build something maybe with some data, for example. So let's go back to I've got to remember how to get here. Let's go back to here. And let's go ahead and write something that spits back some data for us. I wonder, can you use AI in here? Does that actually work? Or I don't have Copilot installed, right? So that I wonder if you could install Copilot. You probably can. That's pull request, so we're not going to worry about that. All right, let's just go ahead and build. We'll build it manually. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so we do have the submit here that looks like it takes some data, whatever is JSON, and it. Actually, no, we're actually using data in here. All right, well, we're going to use data, so let's do that. So one of the features that Ampt has, if we go back to here, is it has a service or a feature called data, which is our data module. This is just an interface with DynamoDB, but just gives us some very, very easy access to DynamoDB just using get, set, and remove. Does a bunch of cool things like data streams, so you can change data capture, stuff like that. But again, that's not the focus of today. There's a bunch of videos on that you can watch that hopefully we'll check out. But essentially what we want to do is we want to bring in Ampt data. So we can either install it that way or just grab it and install it directly from, and I have this habit, I'm using my keyboard shortcuts to switch between the browser and my local IDE, which obviously isn't going to work here because we have to keep going back to this particular thing here. So anyways, I'm going to run, yes, I want to allow that. So I'm going to install Ampt data. This will install Ampt data for us here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import data from @ampt/data. And spell Ampt correctly is helpful. There we go. Okay, so now we are importing Ampt data from data. And let's just go ahead and do this just so that we can kind of see how this works. So I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to make this async so that we can do some asynchronous things. And then I'm going to do const, and I'll do, let's say, record, and this will equal await data.set. And I'm going to call this user or users. Yeah, I'll just do user. And then 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to set some data in here that'll say name I don't even need to do that, right? So name, Jeremy, and let's do email, jeremy@getampt.com. Okay. All right, so we're going to create this record, and I'm going to change this response to be a JSON response. And then I'm going to spit back. And again, I know I'm using a GET request to do this, but I just want to show this really quickly. Also, one of the things you'll notice when you use something like GitPod, because it's auto-saving, it's going to keep auto-saving and it's going to keep having all kinds of errors. That's fine. I think there's probably a way that you can disable auto-saving in here. It would make the workflow a little bit better, but either way, that's just kind of how it works. So we're going to go ahead and spit back. I'm just going to spit back the record here, and I'm going to hit save. So this should sync here. We can always go in here and clear out whatever there. So now I'm going to refresh this over here, and I get this. We can do a little pretty print. Email is jeremy@getampt.com. Name is Jeremy there. So this actually created a record with this user123 information here. If I were to go over to this data manager in my dashboard, I will see that that user record was created here, and I can go in and I can manipulate this, make changes to it, and so forth. So every time I create a new user, if I have to specify a key for it. Again, I don't want to get deep into how the data stuff works, but just quickly, just so you get a sense of how that works. So anyway, so we can create a whole bunch of users if we wanted to. I'm going to make this even easier. You see that you can do this set. So obviously we could put this in a submit and we could use that data and we could do that. I'm going to show you a cool little trick that we can do here is we can actually run this export and type enter, and that'll actually export a data dot, so I can open it, that'll export a data.json that gives us a, excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. Did we get that? That's crazy. Anyways, okay, so maybe I won't. So what this did is just this exported anything that was in that database. I'm definitely going to sneeze, and it's going to, sorry. Anyway, so we get this export of the data. This is anything, all the records that are there. And what's nice about this is great in a development environment. It just lets us manipulate different things very, very quickly. So I'm actually going to copy this like this, paste it in, and I'm going to create a user 1234. And let's just do, let's see, why don't we do, we'll do bill@developer.com, and we'll say Bill. And we don't need this created modified. This actually won't update anything in the database when we import this, which we'll do in a second. But let's do that, and let's do another one for, let's do user 12345. And let's make this, I don't know, we'll make it Michelle. 1L, 2Ls, I don't know. This Michelle is 2Ls. Okay. Save that. All right, so we've just created this data here. Now, this hasn't changed anything in the backend system. This is just a simple way for us to see data into the system if we want to. But here we can go ahead and just now type import, and I'm going to type this -- overwrite in here as well. Hit enter, and this will now import that data. So all that data that we just had there now shows up here. So now we have these users. Great. Okay. And then what I want to do is actually in that GET request, rather than adding a user here, I actually want to get these users. So I'm just going to say GET, and I'm going to say user star, which is just a feature of the way that Ampt data works. And this will allow us to pull back all of those users. So if I hit save over here, refresh, and bring this back, pretty print again, we'll see that we get items back, which is the key, the value, and so forth. If I just want to get back the individual users, I'm going to go ahead and just say users, just so that it's a little clearer what I'm actually trying to return. And I'll do users.items, and then I'm just going to do a .map, and I'm going to return x.value. Like that. Okay, so that should fix that. So if I refresh, I'll just get a list of users like that. Okay, So far, so good. All right. I know this isn't an exciting app, but just trying to do something relatively interesting. The other thing I want to do is I want to be able to maybe add new users. So we'll go ahead and, again, I'm not going to do any validation or any of that stuff now. We should do validation, whatever, but we're going to take this /submit here, and we're going to allow us to post some data. So I'm actually going to go into this index file here, and I'm going to remove pretty much, I think I'm just going to get rid of all of it. And again, so that was that file we were seeing before when we went to just the base template here. That's actually empty now because it literally just saved it. It's because it automatically saved. So if I type in test here and then we refresh this here, we'll see that that is now showing us test. So I actually don't care about any styles or anything. So I'm just going to get rid of all of this stuff. And what we want to do is actually create a form here. So I'm going to create a form, and the action is going to be /, is it submit? I think it's /submit, right? /submit, and the method is going to be post, like that. And then do we have to do the enc type multi-part form data? No, because we want it as JSON. We'll fix this in a second. So let's just do, we'll do it as multi-part form data. I think that's what we want to do. And then we'll do an input, which will be a text area. Would have been easier just to type that in, but that's okay. And we're going to call this name. We don't need an ID. And I'll say name over here. This is not pretty. I totally understand. I guess we'll wrap this in p tags. I know I could use some labels here. That's not the point of the exercise, okay? And then I'm going to put an email here. And there's going to be no validation, but I think I can make this a type email, which will help a little bit. And then we will /p like this, and then I will input submit like that. Okay. Add user. All right, let me save that. Come over here and refresh. Name. This should be email. Like that. And then refresh over here. And then, oh, I refreshed the whole thing. It's got to be careful of that. Okay, but it should all stay connected, so that's fine. So test and test at test.com, and then hit add user, and I'll get an internal server error. That's fine. It will tell me what the problem is. No number after -sign in JSON at position 1. Okay, so first of all, we're assuming that this is coming in as JSON, but we actually, I think we want to grab it as, we want to use parse body. I think that's what we want to do. And then data, let's see if this works. So we can resubmit this. Test, add user. Okay, body. So now we get, pretty apparent, we get the name and we get the email address. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of things that obviously we could do to clean this data and make sure that it was valid and the whole deal, but we're just gonna make the assumption that, we're just going to make the assumption that the data is clean. So from here, we're going to do const, and we're going to say new user, and this is going to do an await data.set. And so we're going to set the user as user : and we're going to need a value there, which we'll get in a second. And then we are just going to go ahead and send in whatever the data is here. And that will, and actually we don't want to call this data, do we? Because that's going to be confusing. So we're going to call this new form data. How about that? Form data. Okay, so now we get data.set. We set the user. Now we need to figure out, we need to generate a number for that user. We can use a UUID, some other things, ULID, whatever. I'm just going to do install ULID. And then I am going to bring in ULID here, import ULID from ULID like that. And then from here, we'll just do a ULID, which should generate a new ULID for me to give me a new value. And then we actually want to spit out new user here like this, comma, and it'll say you just added a user. Okay. All right, let's assume that works. We'll refresh this. Nope, we'll come back here. We'll add user. And this says new user. Here's our new user information. And you just added a user. So that should have, if we come back over here, we should see, get all items here. I don't know why this is not loading. Demo gods are having their way. There we go. Get all items. All right, so now we see this new user was added here with this ULID as the user ID and the email and the name. And so now with that being there, let me open another simple browser here. I'm going to copy this. And that / hello. We probably should change that route. So now we get, oh, I guess it just uses the same one. That's fine. So now we're seeing that we have this information as well. If we want to go back, so let's do a couple quick things just to clean some things up to make this clean. And then we are already 11:30, so we want to do some stuff here. So first of all, we're going to do hello. I'm just going to have this be users. And this will return all the users that we have. And then I'm going to change this to user / name. I'm just going to get rid of this. We're not even going to use this. We don't need to get too complicated. So we got our form data coming in. We're not validating. I get it. You added the user. Good. We have the /users there. We'll get our list. So that'll be good. And I think that's all we need to do. So we should be good to go. This will now be /users. Enter. All right, so this is going to give us our list of users. And then the other thing we want to see is, no, the rest of it's fine. Okay, that's all we need. All right, so we should have a working application now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deploy this to prod like that. Now what this will do is it says, do you want to create a new stage called prod? Yes, I do. US East 1. If I come over here and go back to my app, I'll see that this prod is being created right now. So this isn't deployed yet. This will take a second to deploy. But this is something that I can do right from my browser if I want to just push some changes up to a staging branch. I can also do some previews and things like that. So this will go ahead and deploy this for me. So let's just give it a second. Usually takes like 25, 30 seconds or something like that. Yes, live demo is fun. Let's see, bring Matthew Bonig up here. Appreciate it. Yes, it is fun trying to demo things live. Anyways, okay, so now we just have our URL. So I can go ahead, I'm going to open this in just a separate window, just so we don't have to keep changing stuff. So I now have my form here. And one thing we'll notice if I go to this user's endpoint, we'll actually get no users back. And the reason why we're not is because this is a completely separate environment. The data is completely separate. So let's go ahead and add in a name. We'll add in Matt. And we'll say matt@bonig.com. Hopefully, Matt, this is not your actual email address, but I'll add that. So you just added a user. And now if we were to go over to /users here, we'll see that we now are getting Matt. Okay, so we haven't added delete and all that other stuff. Again, not the point. All right, so we've done the first part where we actually have the app working and running, and we even deployed it to a production account, right? So now we have this completely separate production account over here, which just disappeared on me for some reason. Let me go back over here and do open. So here is our prod and our dev version of these two things. So now I can make changes to, hold on, what did Matt say here? He said, nope, but you did just spam the crap out of my text. Okay. Well, sorry, Mr. Bonig, that happened to you. Anyways, okay, so you have two separate things here, and now I can make any changes I want in my Jeremy developer sandbox, and it won't affect prod in any way, shape, or form. I can even change the data. It's all completely separate, completely isolated. But what I really want to do is I actually want to just set up CI/CD. All right, it already sounds daunting, right? Like a lot of stuff that we have to do there. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually create a GitHub repository and make that connection on from here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll keep it open, but I'm going to just split these windows here. Oops, is that what I wanted to do? What did I just do? Oh, I've got them. Okay, so I've got this version. Okay, that's all right. Hold on. Let me close that one. Let me close that one. Let me go here. Let me split this. Okay. Okay. So now I'm here. So now what I want to do is I already have a main. I'm already in a GitHub repository because I copied this from the template. But what I'm actually going to do here is I want to clear this out. So I'm just going to do an rm-rf to my Git directory. So I'll just wipe that all out. So now I'm my own thing now, no Git. So then I'm going to go ahead and do git init. And that'll create a new Git repository for me, and then I'll do git branch -m and rename this as main. Okay, so now I type correctly. So now I have my own directory here, or my own GitHub repository that's fresh and clean, and it has a branch of main. Okay, so now what I got to do is I actually have to push this somewhere. So I'm going to go to my GitHub. GitHub/Ampt demo. So this is a GitHub repository or GitHub organization that I have. So I'm going to create a new repository in here, and I'm going to call this we'll call this GitPod app, right? I think is what we called it. And we're going to go ahead. We'll make this a public repository so everybody can see it. GitPod app, and then we'll create the repository. And now it's going to go ahead and give us some information. So we need to actually do a commit. So let's jump back over here and we'll do git status. And that's going to show us all these things. So we'll do git add and git commit -m is going to be, we'll just do a init commit. Like that, do that. All right, and now we need somewhere to push it to, which we've already set up. So let's go ahead and just add the remote like this. Keep using those commands, git add remote. So we've done that. And then we should have permission to this because it's public. So let's go over here and try it. Here we go. And it says permission to Ampt demo GitPod denied, unable to access that, which is probably true. So let me go over here. I'm going to go into my user settings. We'll go into Git providers, and then we're going to manage this on GitHub. And this is going to be GitPod here. So we'll open GitPod. And has access to Ampt templates, but not access. Is Ampt demo not in here? I'm going to update my billing for sales tax. Where are you here? Get Ampt. So it has access to Ampt templates, but why does it not have access to Ampt? How do I add Ampt demo? Let's go over here and see if I can figure this out. Ampt demo settings, GitHub apps. I don't know why. Why does that not have access to it? Go to my organization profile. Okay, I don't know. I don't know why I don't know why I don't have access to it. Let me try one more thing here. So if I'm here, edit permissions. So it's a public repo, but maybe it's only my public repo? Because I don't know why it's not showing up. if anybody knows why it doesn't show up here. I guess I never linked it. Is that part of the problem? So if I'm here and I manage this on GitHub, so these are authorized apps. This is for me. And then if I come in here and look at GitPod, I don't know why I don't see, organization access. I mean, I have access to that organization. I know I do. So why would it not show up there? I guess we could ask ChatGPT. Organization. Oops, can't type. Organization to add a GitHub. Magic. GitHub organization to, yeah, what am I thinking of? To a OAuth app. So you can request access for the app from the organization's owner. So click your profile photo, click settings, integration settings, click the authorized OAuth tabs, the name of the OAuth app you want to request for, okay, but what if it's not there? Okay, well, here's what we're going to do just to make life easier. I'm just going to create it on mine instead. So what if we do this? I think we can do this. It would be easy enough to do. So I'm going to go back to GitHub. So this is something strange. I'll go to my profile. I'm sure somebody probably knows the answer to this, which is kind of a pain. Go into my repositories. Let's create a new repository, which we will call, be under me, and we'll call this, what do we want to call this? Oh, that is interesting. Wait, do I not have access to Ampt? Oh, I have access to Ampt demo here. So why would that not? Anyways, okay. We'll call it GitPod app here, and I'll make that a public one, and I'll go ahead and create this repository. All right, so now let me see if I can just update the origin in here, if that will work. I don't know if it will. Remote origin already exists. Okay, does anybody know how to remove a remote origin from Git? How to remove a remote origin from a Git repository? Okay, well, let's try that. See if that works. Jump over here, paste that in, run that. Looks like that worked. Come over here, copy this. Jump over there, paste that, do it. Looks like it's added, okay. And then what if I try Git pushing here? All right, set the upstream. Okay, that was weird. I must have done something. I don't know what I did, but anyways, set the upstream, boom, new branch, main track. Okay, good. Over here, I should have, if I refresh, there it is. So now I have this running, have it syncing here. Okay, so now that that's done, of course, now the reason why I wanted to put an Ampt demo because I already made the connection, so we'll have to do a couple things. That's fine. So I'm gonna jump back over into my, close down some of these things that we probably don't need, like this one. I can get rid of that, this, okay. Close that down and get rid of some of all this. And we'll leave that open, and there we go. Okay, so now we have a little bit more manageable here. All right, so in here, now what I want to do is I want to actually connect this repo and do that. So I actually have to jump into my main account here and go into settings, go into Git, and I have this OAuth authorized, which I think is, actually I want to add a GitHub account here, and I want to add Jeremy Daly. All right, select repositories, and I will select, actually, I'm just going to do all repositories and save this. Okay, so that should have all the access that I need here, and let's assume that this is going to work. which it didn't seem to. So I'm just going to select this one and hope that this works correctly because, of course, again, the demo gods. I was going to show you how easy this was, and then I made it more complex on myself. Okay, so I've authorized that there, and now if I go into apps, we actually want to find my app, which we called GitPod app, which is here. So we'll go into this, and now I can go into the settings. Oops, that was the org settings. I want to go into settings for the app itself. Go into Git here, and then I will see that I've got this OAuth, which I should now be able to find GitPod app here. I want to link it, confirm. This is now linked. Webhook ready to go, allow CLI deployment. So this is one of the things where I can now say, I only want it to deploy to production if it is through CI/CD. So I'm going to uncheck that. Don't need to worry about the root paths. We can add previews. So if we want, anytime we check in a PR, it'll automatically be generated. I'm not going to do that right now. Instead, I'm going to say, anytime something's pushed to main, I want to push this to my prod deployment. So I'm going to save that, click save, and we've successfully updated our Git stuff, so we should be good to go. So now, assuming that everything worked correctly, we should, when we go into our, I'm going to go into our production account here, and deployments, we see that we did this one deployment before. This is the deployment that we did manually. If we go back to here, and I tried to deploy, let's make a change here. Let's add something to this index page. So we're going to add an H2 here, like that, which didn't seem to close it. Okay, and then we'll say add new user like this. So I'm going to click save there. So one of the things that we'll see is in this clever code, which is our production account. You'll see that nothing has changed here. But if we were to open, go back to here, and I'm just going to type in URL. By the way, that just gives me the URL of our test. I'm going to open this one up, or I guess we could have viewed it over there. This is obviously too big. It's at 0. So this one says add user. So I actually could have just done it over here as well. So we could have seen it like that. So this says add user, whereas this one here does not. Okay, so we've just made a change. We want to check that change in and have that go ahead and deploy for us. So we'll go back over here, and if we do git status like this, we'll see that we've got this modified file here. So git add and then git commit, and this will be add header to form. Do that, and then we'll go ahead and do a git push like this. So this has now pushed that information. So what should happen over here is the CI/CD should pick that up. And if I refresh, we'll see that this has picked it up, and we've already got we got a tag here that tells us what it is. So I can click over to this, and I can see, okay, here's the actual commit. Here's the changes, right? I can see that it's doing that, and then this will go ahead and run that deployment for me, which should only take just a few seconds or so. It does pretty quick. So while that's deploying, that's doing that all in the background. If I come over to my hello world here and hit refresh, we're not seeing any changes yet because it's not done. But as soon as that is deployed, which it now is, says deployed, we can see, well, the logs will load in a second here, go over to the hello world, hit refresh, and it is updated. Hopefully that isn't as complicated for you. I've got demo accounts and all kinds of things set up. So if your GitHub account is set up properly, it shouldn't be too hard to connect that and make that work. But it's just a really nice feature. And then what I didn't show you was if I did want to type deploy prod over here, if I hit that, it's going to come back and tell me that they've been disabled by my administrator. So just a little extra control that you have. And then, of course, to make sure that this works, I'm going to type in Jeremy. Oops, can't even spell my own name right. Jeremy@getampt.com. Sure, why not? Click add user. New user was added. And then if I go to /users, we see the list of Matt and myself are on here. So anyways, so that basically, and there's a whole bunch of other things that you can do as well. that we didn't talk about in terms of setting up things like if you want to run scripts, for example, you can run scripts. There's a bunch of videos on this. You can check that out. The CI/CD stuff is all documented here. It'll explain if for some reason you want to use GitHub Actions and you don't want to use our built-in CI/CD. And again, it doesn't have to be GitHub Actions. It can be anything you want. Essentially, the way that it works is if you're in one of these systems, you can actually generate API keys. So you can generate an API key that will tell you, hold on, yeah, Matt, he said, we are the only two people that matter. And that is true. I mean, Matt, love you, buddy. All right. Anyways, so you can do a lot of really cool things by just generating an API key. So if you create a new API key, that gives you something that you can use in our headless CLI mode, which allows you to do Ampt deployments. You can run all kinds of tests. You can do whatever else you want to do, unit tests, things like that, and whatever code runner you want. Do other types of deployment, whatever you're doing, and then you want to actually push that into Ampt, into your live development environment, or into a PR branch, or into production. You can do that. So you have a lot of control with how that stuff works as well. And let's see what else. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with testing as well. There's a lot here, but hopefully the idea is that it's all relatively simple to do. And then of course, there's nothing local to install. I mean, that's part of what we try to do with Ampt, is to say we want everything to run in the cloud, give you that super fast feedback loop, so that you have the capability to just run this anywhere, right? Like, you don't have to have a complex setup. You don't have it works on my machine. And again, there are a lot of great emulators out there that really help do some of that stuff. I love some of the local Lambda, the Lambda feedback stuff, like from SST and from Serverless Framework v4, where you can, actually run the code on your local machine. I think that's really useful, especially when you're debugging, some complex code and you want to put in breakpoints and that kind of stuff. That's all super great. And, it's something we're looking into adding as well. We've had some people that want that, but you also get this super fast feedback loop where you just test your code in the real world, and you don't necessarily have to wait for that whole deployment process to go through to get those same benefits that you might get from like a live Lambda debugger or something like that. So anyways, would love it if you would go and sign up for Ampt, take a look, play around with some of these different things. We have a whole bunch of videos on YouTube that talk about a bunch of the other stuff that we can do, all the different frameworks we integrate with. So if you're using a full stack framework like Next or Nuxt or Astro or something like that, you can do that. If you're using a bunch of the backend frameworks or single page apps, if you're just using straight React, whatever you're doing, we support all of them. So we would love to just get your feedback and make it super easy for you to do that. And again, Matt is just blowing up the DMs here. I guess they're not DMs. But yes, the dev experience is super nice. I love it. And going back to other ways of building, sometimes I say to myself, like, why would I go back to other ways of building? So anyways, we're doing some other cool things too. We got some container stuff coming up, which I know it sounds a little weird, but trust me, I think you're all going to like it. And anyways, so I will see you next week. Sign up for Ampt. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.